Maybe it looked terrifying. Now it's got
It's supposed to look terrifying. It's ghost hunting.
If you are a lover of all things dark, spooky, haunted history, you have found the right place. I'm Taylor. Let's go Frightseeing. Hello and welcome to episode 3 of Let's Go Frightseeing. In case you haven't watched the other episodes, Let's Go Frightseeing is my new series where I tell you all about the dark history and spooky and sometimes haunted things that I learn on my travels. This season is all about my time in Portland and Seattle, and this episode will mostly be me telling you stories mixed in with some vlogging and like a tiny bit of ghost hunting sprinkled in. Portland was absolutely beautiful and we had a wonderful time there, but if you remember in the first part of my Portland trip, we did have a couple of spooky happenings in the underground tunnels of Portland, and today we are taking a trip around the haunts and history of the above ground Portland. This city is so full of history and so many interesting things and lots of hauntings and spooky tales. I will also have my Portland travel guide in the description of this episode, listing where we stayed, a few good restaurants, and of course the links to the spooky tours that we went on. So if you ever do visit Portland, you can do them too. And as always, the tour is my main source of information with this episode, along with a little bit of Googling to fill in the gaps and double check some facts before we get into it. So both of our tours that we went on in Portland were absolutely amazing. Our first tour guide, who was featured in my last episode, Natasha, is actually really good friends with our tour guide from our second tour, and her name is Victoria Rose. They were both incredible storytellers, and we had a great time.
Now, there are many different types of haunts, so they say. I'm going to go over a list of 3. Each one that I list is extremely different to the next, although they do tend to coexist.
So as Victoria Rose mentioned in that clip, there are a few different types of haunts that you can run into. There are residual haunts, and these kind of haunts play over and over like a scene played out before your eyes, in the same time, the same place, same location, every time. One of our tour guides on a previous trip explained this type of haunt as history demanding to be seen. I love that. I think all hauntings can kind of fall under that. These haunts are also sometimes called an imprint. The second type is an intellectual haunt, and Victoria Rose described this type of haunt as, quote, just as aware of you as you are of it, end quote. It has a consciousness. This is the kind of haunting that responds to things like EVPs, voice recorders, etc. And third is poltergeist activity, which is thought to be the most dangerous type of haunt by a lot of people. It's definitely the most terrifying most of the time. Poltergeist activity is believed to be caused by a non-human entity, so unlike intellectual haunts, which are believed to be caused by spirits of the dead, poltergeists are much spookier. This is like when people get thrown around and have scratches on their backs and things like that. If you're familiar with the story of Annabelle, the haunted doll, or The Exorcist, those types of haunts are more of that poltergeist activity type of haunting. That's my understanding, if I understand correctly. Okay, I'm not a demonologist, I'm just doing my best to learn, okay? So there are your fun facts about the different types of hauntings, and like Victoria Rose said, sometimes those categories do have some crossovers. One of the most well-known haunted places in Portland is Kel's Irish Restaurant and Pub, which is funny because they actually have another location in Seattle that is also very well known for its hauntings. I wonder if they consider that good luck or bad luck that they have 2 haunted pubs. I think it's great. Anyways, today we are talking about Kel's in Portland. The actual Kel's Pub in Portland was opened in 1990, but the building it's in has been there since 1889. It was originally a doctor's office on the top floor named after Rodney Gilson, and it had a creamery on the bottom floor as well as a basement that was used originally for storage, I think. This building is now known as the Gilson Building and has housed many different businesses over the years. And fun fact, this building is famous for being the last building in Portland to use cast iron pilasters and columns, and Portland is actually in second place for having the most cast iron architecture in the US, right behind New York's historic Soho district. Fun facts. Okay, now, the hauntings. The basement at Kel's is a very cool and fancy looking cigar room that gives it that really fun speakeasy, prohibition, secret booze in the 1920s kind of feel. If you remember in the last episode where I talked about the Shanghai tunnels under Portland, allegedly, the Gilson building is also attached to those tunnels, or at least it once was attached to those tunnels, and people believe that this is a big part of why Kel's is so haunted. Some of the encounters that people have said they experienced are seeing a full-body apparition of a firefighter in full fire gear who was killed in the line of duty. It's believed that this is the ghost of David Campbell, and he most often appears to people who have some kind of a connection to firefighters. There are also some other spooky happenings, such as the piano playing itself, the sound of heavy breathing against your neck when no one else is around, hate that, and things like people feeling someone brush past them, but when they look, there's no one there. Victoria Rose told us that there are bartenders who have experienced strange things like seeing a face in the window after closing, or being full-on pushed while they're in the basement alone. Okay, we took the EMF reader with us, and if you've watched the last couple of episodes or if you've watched ghost hunting shows, you're familiar with this. If you are not familiar, the EMF reader is an electromagnetic field reader. It finds electricity. Pretty simple. These are commonly used in ghost hunting because it's believed that it can also pick up some kind of spiritual energy. And I know I always say this, but my husband Zach and I are both believers in the paranormal, but we try to be reasonably skeptical and find explanations for anything odd that happens. I had the EMF reader out off and on throughout this tour, and it was usually completely still, just like it is right now on the green. And to give you an idea, it has to be pretty close to an electric source for it to go off. So for example, my phone, obviously electric, it has to be like touching it for it to do anything and light up, right? Even like the mic doesn't really make it do anything. So it's not like overly sensitive. It has to kind of be like right on it. And if my phone is not turned on, it just stays on the green, which is totally normal, right? Okay. So it has to be very close to something. The mic's not making it go off. My camera's not making it go off. There's lights all around me that are not making it go off. My point is, it's not super sensitive. It kind of has to be like directly on an electric source. So when it starts lighting up when it's not near electricity, it's weird, okay? It's weird and spooky and kind of exciting. And there's probably usually an explanation for it. But when we were standing in front of Kells, as soon as Victoria Rose started talking about David Campbell, the firefighter who allegedly haunts this place, it kind of went a little nuts.
The ghost of David Campbell continues to haunt the basement area. Now, his energy, we believe that it is very noticeable. It's also a feeling that brings overwhelming, a good feeling, a good energy. You feel welcomed. It's very interesting. He also tends to appear in photography or mess with your photography.
It was on green, like just like it is right now. The whole time that we were standing there talking about the building and the history, we were in the same spot. And then as soon as she started talking about the hauntings, it started flashing around and doing different things. It was so weird. And we were asked not to record large portions of the tour, so I'm going to mute a lot of this and just show you the EMF, but you'll get all of the information and bits and pieces that you need. So she finished talking about David Campbell, and then she had moved on to another topic, and this stayed quiet for the most part. I stayed in the exact same spot other than moving slightly to see if I was possibly picking something up, and the people around me were moving, so this wasn't, again, it wasn't from someone's phone. So normally, if it's touching something electrical, it will light up to either the orange or the red, and then it just stays there. It doesn't really bounce around all that much like it was in that clip. So like I said, she was talking about something else, and then she mentioned the entity that is not as friendly as our firefighter friend, and the EMF jumped up again. And reminder, I didn't catch it doing any of this when we stayed at the supposedly very haunted Hasita Head Lighthouse. It was totally normal there. And you will see in the next couple of videos, nothing like this happened in Seattle. It was only in these specific spots in Portland.
And the more common haunts that they have here are anything but nice. They have one, they say, that will push you on the very steep stairwell.
So the lights stop moving around for a minute until she brings up the fact that Kells has a ton of mirrors in it, and it jumped all the way up to the red section, which I don't think I've ever actually seen it do before.
The theory of mirrors and portals, and that when mirrors face one another, they can create portals.
So in that clip, Victoria Rose is talking about the women's bathroom, and there are these mirrors that all face each other, which in the paranormal community is a big no-no because you're just allegedly inviting energy in that you do not want into that room. It creates like a portal. A lot of people talk about this. It's very well known if you're into like the spooky ghosty stuff. Channels,
what they say is the most nefarious haunt, into the women's bathroom.
Yeah.
So the men's bathroom only has one teeny tiny mirror. The women's bathroom is surrounded by mirrors.
So the EMF was jumping around like crazy that whole time while she was talking about it. Then she mentions the men's room, and it goes completely dead again. It was so weird. To be honest, I feel like when I was actually recording this standing there, at least for part of it, I wasn't looking directly at the EMF reader because I was looking at her, listening to the story and paying attention, and was thinking that I would just record the EMF reader and look at it later, because I honestly think if I had noticed it jumping around like that, I wouldn't have been so calm and just standing there. Going back and editing the footage, I was like, this is super spooky to me. So that was really bizarre. And in the video, you can see I stay in mostly the same place. There are a couple people that walk past me, but for the most part, no one's next to me, and I cannot come up with an explanation for why it would be jumping around like that, specifically when she's talking about like the demonic, scary stuff and the portals and all of those things. It was so weird. I think that was weird because I'm telling you, I have never seen it do that before, and it did not act that way again on any of the other times I've used the EMF reader. It was only then, which I actually kind of love, because if it was constantly going off, right, I'd be like, this is stupid and it's not catching anything real. But part of me is like, what was that? Okay, and then another fun spot that we passed on our tour was the very first Voodoo Donuts. The Portland location was dreamt up by Kenneth Cat Daddy Pogson and Tress Shannon. They shared a vision to create something fun and cool and weird, and they did exactly that. So this Voodoo Donuts is not haunted, but they have a weird story and kind of like, it's kind of little dark story that I wanted to share. So Voodoo Donuts is and was insanely successful and popular, but the reason I'm including it in the spooky history portion of this video is because of one very interesting fact that I learned and absolutely loved. So the OregonEncyclopedia.org says, quote, "The company's slogan is, 'The magic is in the hole,' and its logo features a version of Baron Samedi, Voodoo Loa of the dead. The cooking oil the shop uses is referred to by Shannon and Pogson as quote-unquote voodoo oil. In order to ritualize the spirit behind the name voodoo, Pogson and Shannon became ordained ministers in the Universal Life Church and performed weddings, both real and fake, in their stores. And in 2008, Mayor Tom Potter pronounced the Voodoo Portland Cream Donut Portland's official city donut," end quote. So that's a fun fact. And originally, Voodoo Donuts was only open at night, so they served a very eclectic crowd. They created two very specific donuts that kind of got them in trouble with the FDA. One of those was a Pepto-Bismol donut that was dipped in Pepto and sprinkled with crushed up Tums on the top, which it sounds so disgusting. It's hilarious. And about the Pepto donut, the founder said, quote, "With the Pepto donut, I honestly thought if you had that shot of tequila you shouldn't have had at 2 a.m. and then you got sugar, bread, Pepto, and Tums, you'd either feel better or you'd puke your ass off, and then you'd feel better because you got it out of your system. So it was a win-win either way." Is that legal? You can't you can't serve people Pepto at a store, can you? The other very well-known donut was probably even worse, and that was the NyQuil donut. I think that one was a glazed donut laced with NyQuil, and the photos that I've seen look like it came with a little cup of NyQuil in the center of it. And about this one, the founder said, quote, "It's not like you were getting buzzed off the NyQuil. You would have had to eat 50 donuts to get high off it. But we got a lot of notoriety for it. That was one of our first big press successes," end quote. While I think that's hilarious, the FDA was not super stoked about those donuts and they had to quit selling them, but I thought that that was kind of fun and interesting and a very specifically weird Portland thing that I love. I love creative weirdos. And now you know a fun fact about Voodoo Donuts that maybe you didn't know before. The next stop on our spooky tour is Electric Lettuce, which is a cannabis dispensary that is allegedly very haunted. There are actually quite a few dispensaries that have haunting stories, and I love that. Good for those little ghosties, okay? Anyways, here's the thing with these dispensaries. They have 24-hour surveillance. Everything is recorded, and it's very illegal to mess with or doctor footage in any way from dispensaries. So strange things happening on video in these places is fascinating because it's unexplained, it's happening all on film, and who's going to risk legal action to make a silly little fake paranormal video? You know what I mean? The Old Town Electric Lettuce has these big metal fixtures outside of it that are actually shaped like poppy bulbs because back in the day it was an opium den, like a lot of places in Portland. Not me Googling poppy bulbs / opium dens in Portland. I'm probably on a list somewhere. This is my formal account that I was Googling it for this video, okay? FBI, if you're watching, I'm not looking up poppy bulbs. If you're unfamiliar, poppy bulbs are used in opium and in other illegal activities. I'm not trying to get flagged. Google it yourself and then we can be on the same list. Anyways, one of the stories from Electric Lettuce came from an employee who worked there for years and had the same events happen over and over. According to this employee, she would constantly find coins stacked in the same locations in the shop. She would leave the front part of the dispensary to go to the office and come back to find a small stack of dimes. It was always dimes, always the same amount, always in the same places. And apparently multiple employees experienced this and feel like the dimes are a gift from a friendly ghost. There is also a story of a not-so-friendly ghost who shows up and starts causing trouble anytime people start talking about politics. The doors will slam or things will be knocked off the counter. He's like, listen, this is not the place for talking politics. It's the place for chilling out, you know what I mean? There's another story from one of the security guards who looked at the cameras one night after the store had closed and saw people standing in the front, but when he went to go let them know that they were closed, the store was empty. And apparently he would often hear voices in the front area when he was in the back office, and when he would go to check, there was nobody there. After a few of these experiences, he had had enough and he quit. If you have a haunted story about a place you worked, oh, please send those to me. Actually, send me all your spooky stories, but specifically, I want to hear about your haunted jobs. You can send those to tgicrimeday@gmail.com. I would really love to do a whole compilation of these spooky stories that people send me, so if you have a ghost story, send it to my email. And to finish up today's spooky stories from Portland, we asked our wonderful tour guide if she happened to know anything spooky happening at the hotel we were staying at, which is the Hoxton in Chinatown. By the way, it was 10 out of 10. We loved it. Highly recommend. Victoria Rose said that she actually did know of a few people who had been on the tour who experienced things at the Hoxton, so I will finish up this video with her story. Don't forget to subscribe for more spooky content, and I will talk to you soon. And until next time, maybe don't go into any mirror portals that are located in a haunted pub. Bye.
That's fine.
Tell me about it.
So,
the Hoxton.
Hoxton, apparently there's a haunt there that likes to hide your belongings.
Oh no.
And it will usually do so until you end up in a fight.
Oh no.
Like if you're with somebody.
Uh-oh.
So, about a year
Beware.
ago, I had a guest, husband and wife, on my tour. They were staying in one of the rooms, and an item disappeared. I don't know what the item was, but I know that it was like a big deal. They got into a fight about it, where the wife said, you must have forgotten it. He's like, no, I swear, I don't know what it was, which makes me curious, but I don't know what it was. They had a full-on argument that she forgot it at home and that he misplaced it. They moved rooms. When they walked into their new room, a room which they just got the key to, it was sitting right on the dresser, right there, which then invoked another argument of, well, you know how it got here. No, you must know how it got here. Yeah. So that's the most common haunt in there. Ask some of the employees. I'll tell you there's something in there that likes to hide your belongings.